Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, enemies, and comrades, I hope you're doing well wherever you are. Karibu sana, karibu sana, karibu. Come in, join in. Welcome. It's early in the morning, wherever I am. Whether you're watching this on YouTube as a follower of my channel, Kenyan Revolutionary, on YouTube. By the way, if you haven't subscribed to that, go check it out. My name is right there, as you can see on the screen, Kenyan Revolutionary. You know the order of business, the first order of business. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe to the channel. And if you're looking at this video, if you're seeing this video on your timeline and you've got the notification, like the video. That's the first order of business. Anyway, I hope you're doing well. It's been a long weekend. Still, the weekend is winding down, as tomorrow we're going back to work. For those of you who work, or, it's a weekday. But karibu sana, karibu sana. Grab a popcorn, grab a drink, sit down, listen. If you want to join in, just let me know. I can put the link up. You can come in the studio and give me your 2 cents. So today we are going to talk about what's going on in South Africa just a bit. I'm not going to delve deep into it, but there's some interesting things happening in South Africa. Julius Malema is showing his true colors. I've been saying this guy is suspect. I mean, I've always said this. People who come out and they're so pro, I don't know, go to the extreme, propping up, they're so pro-Africans. There's nothing wrong with being pro-African, pan-Africanist, or whatever the case is. But this guy was a little bit too much. And I started just listening to his, rhetoric and what he's advocating for, all this borderless Africa thing. And I've argued this in my previous videos, saying that anyone that is arguing for a borderless Africa is a globalist. That's the globalist agenda, to have a borderless society where people we live like a bunch of cows who have no sovereignty. I've always argued that, okay? So when someone like Julius Malema comes out and says such things, I started kind of having questions about this. Then I saw a clip by Rutendo, who mentioned that Julius Malema actually received some money from the Queen of England before she passed away. Something that's made him and Winnie Mandela part ways as far as politically. And then, there's something that just about Julius Malema that just sit right with me. Now, as most of you know, for those of you who live under a rock, there's elections happening in South Africa, and there have been a widespread, let me not say widespread, but there's reasonable cases of rigging in the presidential election. And the first thing that, the statements that Julius Malema was making also are questionable. This guy came out and said, I'm ready to accept the results. The rigging that takes place is probably going to be inconsequential. And the majority of us were asking, hey, wait a minute. First of all, how do you know that it's going to be inconsequential? Do you know how much was rigged? You just came out and the first thing you say, is that you accept the results, okay? Then he's talking about the possibility of getting to a coalition. For somebody who is like pro, pan-Africanist, is, Julius Malema just, no. But anyway, props, rebel salute to Jacob Zuma, the head of Umkhonto Sizwe, who went up and gave a speech. I'll be playing the speeches and I'll show you guys the kind of what's the timeline of what's happening in South Africa, just so we can get a clearer view of what's happening. It is said that Ramaphosa, since he lost a lot of seats in the ANC, they are saying that he will refuse to resign, and probably they're talking about a coalition between the DA, DA party, which is like a white party, the Afrikaans party, which is not popular by all means, who also have been rigging votes, especially in Western Cape, who want to join forces with ANC, which will be a total slap to the revolutionary movement. Well, ANC is said to have abandoned the struggle long time ago. They were sold out long time ago. Ramaphosa was not popular by any means. But for him to even consider, especially these ANC guys, to consider forming a coalition with the DA, Democratic Alliance Party, will be a total slap to the freedom fighters. But anyway, I wanted to also start by mentioning that I made a tweet and say that immediately when I heard that our former president, illegitimate president, who has a PhD in rigging elections, was none other than an election observer in this South African contest, presidential contest or elections. And right there, that was a sign that something, could go wrong. And indeed, there's investigations. But the results have not been, has not been officially announced. And there's some people who are saying, oh, we should, announce this as quick as possible because it would be good for the markets. And the South Africans are asking, wait a minute, is that more important than us exercising our right to vote, to choose who is going to lead our country? I mean, come on, it's not about the markets, it's about the people. Okay, so there's different things that's happening in South Africa. Now, I will start by a speech that was made with this political analyst. He's a professor. I forgot his name, but he rightfully mentioned why the US of A, especially the West to be in general, targeted South Africa, tried to rig and interfere with South Africa, especially in this coming election, because of South Africa's long-standing relationship with Russia and the non-alliance, the people who are not aligned with the West, the BRIC nations, okay? So if the West can kind of infiltrate or mess with South Africa democracy, they can obviously put in a puppet in there that can sway South Africa, move South Africa away from the BRICS nation, because South Africa is an important economic bloc on the South, in the global South, for the BRICS, okay? As you know, South Africa is rich in minerals, gold, diamond, and all that good stuff, all the mining's down there. So if the West can get South Africa out of that BRICS nation, that will be a plus to them, okay? But anyway, let me start with this. And not only that, of course, there's also this issue. Remember South Africa, the lawyer that went to, I think it was ICC or something like that, they voted, they put a lawsuit. Was it a lawsuit or whatever against Israel, okay? And if you know, Israel has huge influence on the West, okay? So all these things were kind of the reason for the West to really look into South Africa and try to make sure that they derail the democracy there, put in their puppet. And that's why they're probably try to infiltrate the ANC and their minions, their puppets, the DA, a Democratic Alliance, I think, party, which is basically the Afrikaans party, okay? So let me start with this. If you have subscribed to the channel, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends and comrades, go ahead, find me, text that. Unapata yo, Kenya Revolutionary. Go subscribe to the channel, put your notification on, so every time I come in, you will always find me. You can comment in the comment section on YouTube. You can comment I'm on X live right now. You can follow me there, but there's my name. Find me on YouTube, put your notification on, and your fast order of business as usual is usually to like the video. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Let's get started, okay? Because there's a lot that I want to go through and there's a lot that I want to discuss. I'll keep it to 1 hour or maybe less, maybe. Stay tuned, all right? So while I do that, take that opportunity to go ahead and subscribe and do all the good stuff, okay? All right. Let's get started. Are we getting started? Are we getting started, ladies and gentlemen, brothers, sisters, friends, and comrades? All right, we'll get started right now. So here we are. I am going to start with a video. of this professor who mentioned, highlighted the reason why the West took a special interest on this South African elections. As I explained, South Africa being part of BRICS, it has always been problematic for the West. They don't like that. They don't like this BRICS idea, anyways, because because of all the obvious reasons, they want to get rid of the dollar. They want to trade by their own Ninio. So South Africa, wanataka they're trying to get it what do you call it, sabotage. Anyway, let's start with this clip so we can kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. All right, let's get started. Let me play that video and pay attention very carefully to what this guy says. Okay, all right, let's do it. Here we go. All right.
United States. They're pro-Zionist, pro-Israel, anti-BRICS, and they want to reverse all of the advances that South Africa has made as an independent political and economic and moral actor on the world stage. So I think that South Africa is currently being targeted for something like a soft coup and interference in their elections and in their campaigning by means of the United States through the National Endowment for Democracy and maybe through other organs of state power and private sector power to funnel money into the Democratic Alliance and build them up and try to use them to unseat the ANC, which went through their own sort of neoliberal phase when they first came to power after the end of apartheid. But they're returning more now to their roots, which is more concerned with the actual social welfare and not so much with the rampant neoliberal capitalist approach, corporate approach to the economy. Not to mention the fact, obviously, with the case against the ICJ, South Africa they have a very large target on their backs. And I think that because it is a democratic system, the U.S. is most likely going to try to pursue regime change in South Africa by interfering with the elections. If they can do it through simply outfunding the ANC by pouring funding and donations and contributions and providing technical assistance to the Democratic Alliance, then they'll do it that way. If they can't guarantee that they can do it that way, then they'll probably try to tamper with the election itself. So there need to be, I think, there's an election coming up in a couple of months, shortly after Ramadan, I believe. So I think it's in May. Anyone in South Africa who cares about their government and cares about having a representative government and is proud of the positions and the stances that South Africa has taken, you need to definitely turn out to vote, and you need to definitely try to ensure that the elections are monitored by independent monitors to ensure that there's no funny business being undertaken by the United States and its agents.
Okay. So here it is. This political analyst is Professor, I forgot his name, Abdi something, I forgot him. But he made a point. He said this was months before, the South African election. And as you heard the man said, United States had vested interest in this election because they are trying to put the puppet, as I've mentioned. South Africa has been a thorn in the global South, not only economically, being aligned with the BRICS nation, who are not anti-West, but they are anti-West as far as like economically speaking. Okay, they are trying to dump the dollar and all that stuff. And South Africa is a rich country, like as I've mentioned. And long behold, after this man gave that political analysis, guess what happens in this South African electoral process? There's huge cases of possible rigging. And Jacob Zuma came out and spoke about that. And Jacob Zuma is being painted as the bad guy, okay? Jacob Zuma, he's for most South Africans. And South Africans, if you're here, please subscribe, like the video, get in here, try to explain to me, help me. This guy he's been looked at by South Africans as the real deal. He's kind of the last of the dying breed, the people who are truly cared about the ANC. They're really pro the African people. Ramaphosa said, Ramaphosa was in the struggle before. Yes, I mentioned that when he's on that book by Nelson Mandela, The Long Walk in Freedom. But Ramaphosa lost his way. He lost his marbles in Neo. He's compromised. He was given some shares in one of those mining companies. So Ramaphosa was doing the bidding for the people who run South Africa, the elites, that is, okay? So the ANC kind of broke down with corruption and all this stuff. So Zuma is the last of the Neo, and he was being targeted. They were accusing him of, being corrupt when he was a president, whatever the case is, and he has survived that. I guess his cases will resume in April of next year or something like that. But anyway, Zuma kind of knew that something was going to happen, and he said that he had a master plan. He had his people still in ANC, because remember, Zuma used to be ANC, but he left and he formed this Umkhonto Sizwe. If you remember the history of Umkhonto Sizwe, this used to be like the military wing of the ANC back in the day, with Chris Hani being the head of Umkhonto Sizwe, who was gunned down brutally. Okay, Chris Hani was said to be more influential than Nelson Mandela, if you remember, back in the day. But anyway, so Jacob Zuma, went on with the Umkhonto Sizwe and ran for president. And now that ANC has lost a lot of seats, Ramaphosa should be stepping down, because I guess they had their political differences. They were kind of politically, they were going neck to neck. Okay, because Zuma kind of felt like Ramaphosa was behind his troubles, something like that. Okay, but anyway, so Jacob Zuma is viewed as this guy. He's a very popular guy within the South Africans. Okay, South Africans really love him. Of course, there's Julius Malema, who's this what do you call it? What's the word for it? Somebody who's really plays into people's emotions, says the right things about South Africa, and especially panders to the black population. But like I said, Julius Malema is a demagogue. Okay. But now, especially when he came out in the press conference and say that yes, there was rigging, but it's inconsequential. I mean, if you are running for an office presidency and there was a number of cases of rigging, you can't just come out and say those whatever rigging is inconsequential. What if you won? I mean, the reasonable thing to do if there's cases of rigging is to say, hey, let's get to the bottom of this. Let's have a hand recount and get the facts. Let's find out who truly won. You just can't come out and say, hey, the rigging is inconsequential. Let's just move on. Let them announce the winner. You see what I'm saying? Which really confirms that there's something suspicious about Julius Malema. And a lot of people have been saying Julius Malema is a sellout. The guy is just a demagogue, says things to pander to the suffering blacks, millions of black people. But this guy is in the pocket of the bourgeoisie. I'll show you some tweets, and a lot of young people are really, really turning against Julius Malema. They're realizing this guy is not who he says he is. I know to the outsiders, especially the Pan-Africanist community, they really see Julius Malema as this guy who's causing this economic revolution in South Africa and has a great influence in Africa. I remember he was invited in Kenya and spoke with Mulumba, what's his name? Professor Lumumba. But I kept on maintaining, and there's a video, my last video that I made, a lot of Africans came up and say, hey, you don't know what you're talking about. Stop insulting our leader or whatever the case is. And I say, no. This guy is a suspect. I do not. There's something that just rubs me the wrong way about Julius Malema. But with this, him coming out after there's glaring evidence that there was electoral rigging, and he comes in and the first thing he says that, it's inconsequential. Let's move on. I wouldn't mind getting into the coalition with the government, NC or whatever the case is. That just shows me that this guy doesn't care about justice. He's a paid guy. He's a fraud. Julius Malema, you're a fraud. Okay. So for you Julius Malema fans out there, I'm sorry to bust your bubble. I don't buy this. But let's listen to this is Desmond Tutu. He said something about ANC back in the day. This is before he passed away. Desmond Tutu was one of those influential people in South Africa. Bishop Desmond Tutu, that is. But I was also disappointed to find out that this guy was part of that secret organization with Nelson Mandela, whatever, of Malta, whatever. They're kind of like Freemasons, Jesuits, guys. Him, Desmond Tutu, and Nelson Mandela. So these guys were sold out. Okay. But they did their thing. They're famous people. They're revered people in the African history. But he says something about ANC that actually was really eye-opening. I'm going to get to the Kenyan politics. Just give me a second. This is all connected. Guess what? Our one and only Uhuru Kenyatta, the most corrupt, irredeemably corrupt colonial puppet, who has been a puppet since his dad came to power, okay, who was given power by the British, okay, was chosen to be an electoral observer in the South African election. And surprise, surprise, we have a problem with rigging in South Africa. So you see, all these people puppets that were used by the West converged during this electoral process. And they're the ones who are kind of oversighting the process. And now we have these cases of rigging. What a coincidence, okay? But anyway, let's listen to Desmond Tutu. Listen to what he said about NC. I'm trying to take you so you can get an idea of how South Africans are starting to realize where they're going wrong. South Africa has been a really, really, they fought for their country. It's a beautiful country. I like the story. They're very, very, they are very vocal. When things are wrong, they go out there. In fact, there are some people who are part of the Mkotosizwe party who are like really, they're waiting for Jacob Zuma. Jacob Zuma also went to the electoral headquarters where the counting was done, and he gave a speech. I'll play that speech too. But let's start with Desmond Tutu. So as we continue, okay? Like the video, ladies and gentlemen. Go to my YouTube channel, Kenyan Revolutionary. Like the video, subscribe, share, do all this good stuff. And make sure you put your notification on so every time I come in, you can always join in or listen up or chat with me. Okay, so let's listen to Desmond Tutu as he speaks about the ANC. Here it is. This is before he died.
All of the apartheid government, we will pray. I am warning you like I warned the nationalists. I am warning you. One day, we will start praying for the defeat of the ANC government. You are disgraceful. I want to warn you. You are behaving in a way that is totally at variance with the things for which we stood. I am warning you. I am warning you that we will pray as we prayed for the downfall of the apartheid government. We will pray for the downfall of a government that misrepresents us. You have got a huge majority. That's nothing. The nationalists had a huge majority that was increasing. They beat the dust. Watch out, ANC government. Watch out. Watch out. Watch out.
Okay.
I am warning.
So you see, Desmond Tutu gave them a warning, and NC, they lost a lot of seats in this election right now. Lots of seats. Okay. So now with all this that's happening, Jacob Zuma, not Jacob Zuma. Jacob Zuma is a Kenyan politician who passed away. But anyway, Jacob Zuma went and gave a speech after this. Again, I told you about reports of in Western Cape where the rigging was taking place. So forth. There was huge evidence. There's actually a video. I don't know if I saved it, of a car that had votes, ballots, papers that it's a face. It's a farce. Even there's a place where in a voting whatever, where EFF members, supporters who are wearing EFF regalia and all that stuff, they were stopped from voting. Okay, and there's just numerous cases of voter fraud, rigging, irregularities. Okay, so let me play Jacob Zuma's speech here, so he can speak about what's going on. And apparently, Jacob Zuma is asking for a recount in votes, but now the news outlets are trying to paint Jacob Zuma as someone who is advocating for violence and chaos. They're saying that this guy is inciting people, try to put doubt into people so that the country can go down chaos. And he's simply asking for a recount. What's so tough about that? He's saying, hey, let's delay announcing this matokeo results. Let's first recount, because there's evidence of rigging. Let's just make sure that these ballots are what they are. Okay, but people are now, the media is attacking him, saying that Jacob Zuma wants to cause chaos. But let's listen to Jacob Zuma as he speaks. He went to the Ninio and spoke on that issue, on that particular issue. Let's listen to Jacob Zuma. Sorry, let me
give the political party, and I'm hoping whoever is responsible is hearing what we are saying. Don't start trouble when there is no trouble. Give the political parties, which I think they are a majority, the chance to present their cases, their information, their everything. Don't rush us. Part of the reason we've come to a point that there should be a bigger way of dealing with the matter. These who have been in charge can't investigate themselves. Yes. That's why we say there must be an open, clear, investigation done by the, what did you say?
Commission of Inquiry.
Commission of Inquiry. It is us. Our parties are not having what they voted for. For an example, there's something they call, I don't know what it is called. Some say it's the machines crashed. There are no machines that crashed. Yeah. The machines were being done things as wrong. We know, we are going to present that. We're going to present that. Nobody must rush us. Yes. And if they were doing anything for us, for our country, then they must listen to us. No rush. No rush.
Okay, so you heard what he said. He said, no rush, okay? Which I agree with him. The electoral process is an important process. People are voting. It's a democratic exercise, which is very important because the people are speaking their voice, choosing their leader. Why is such a rush? There's actually somebody who came out, as I said, was saying it is for the benefit of the markets. The longer we delay, the markets are going to crash because there's uncertainty. What kind of reasoning is that? Okay, so are the markets more important than the people? Okay, but I agree with him. Now I would be very curious to know which company provided these voting machines. Do you hear me? I would be very curious to find out which company provided these voting machines to this IEC. IEC, for those for our Kenyan brothers, IEC is the equivalent of the IEBC in Kenya. They are tasked with this, undertaking this electoral process. Okay. So there's a guy called Greg Palast. He's an investigative journalist. He writes extensively about voter fraud, election fraud, not only in the US, but in South Africa, Venezuela, and all this class. I don't want to go deeper into this because there's a time when if you mention stuff like that, your channel will be would be struck. So I won't go back there. But his name is Greg Palast. Okay, he's an American investigative journalist. But the question I posed, you guys do your homework. Go find out which voting machines, which company was contracted to, undertake this process. Contracted by the IEC, okay, which is equivalent to the IEBC in Kenya, okay? As I've mentioned, you see, I started by giving you that professor who gave his opinion on the upcoming elections, talking about there could be a possible case of electoral fraud, interference by the West in the South African elections. And lo and behold, we see what's happening, and we see a similar trend. This is kind of what happened in 2017, if you remember, in Kenya, where the election observer in South Africa, the illegitimate President Uhuru, the son of Jomo Kenyatta, was arguing the same thing. He rigged himself, and before the case went to the Supreme Court, he was saying, hey, let's move over. We have business to do. I'm trying to improve the economy. Come on, let's just move on. What's the problem here? Let's just same thing is happening. There's a pattern of behavior, pattern of operation. And that's why I mentioned it's I was very disappointed, not only very disappointed, but question somebody like Julius Malema coming out and spewing such nonsense, talking about this electoral whatever rigging is inconsequential. What are you talking about? People spend time lining, queuing up long lines, waiting to cast their votes. And then somebody tried to subvert their democratic process by rigging. And you come out and say, oh, that's inconsequential. We should move on because you're looking to get into government through a coalition with the DA and all this corrupt ANC. Julius Malema, I've always known you're a fraud. Okay? You're a disappointed. Jacob Zuma seems to be the last of the dying breed. Say what you will about Jacob Zuma. Omkoto Sizwe. Let's get to it. There are people who are speaking out, and they're speaking out a lot. Another clip from Jacob Zuma. Let me play it very quickly as we continue. I know it's been 33 minutes. Like the video, ladies and gentlemen. Go to my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is Kenyan Revolutionary. Go there, subscribe, like the video, and comment, okay? All right. Let's get to another clip by Jacob Zuma, okay? Are you guys ready? All right, let's play it. Here it is. Jacob Zuma. Okay. Here it is.
I'm speaking after we've been trying to convince South Africans to change the manner in which we've been handling ourselves. And I thought it was important for me at this point to thank the voters who have voted for real progressive parties who indeed are keen that we should change South Africa to be a country that is really democratic. A country that respects its laws and everything. I think people came in big numbers. And I want also to recognize our colleagues who are with us here, because I think we are on the same direction to fix this country. We've said a lot during the process when we're talking to our people. And I think even now, my colleagues have responded to a number of questions. And indeed, in my view, South Africa has been deteriorating from what we all envisaged it to be. I'm, for an example, worried now that we are saying there are wrong things that have happened during, whether it's accounting, whatever you call it. And the institution that is given an authority to handle this for us, not for itself, for us, the citizens, guided by the principles and the laws. And if we raise the issues, that there are issues that need to be attended to, they have an authority to say, sorry, we'll give you just a few minutes. And then we close. I don't know what type of a democracy that one is on the people whom are supposed to be given this democracy. And they are pushed as if you're prisoners. Somebody forcing you to get into the cell before they lock. The complaints that have been put forward are too serious. Very, very serious. This is not, or they are not like small little points. They are very, very serious. Before we could come to voting, many trucks were caught, driven by wrong people, instead of those who participate in making sure that everything is done properly, fairly. And we, for an example, haven't heard the end of those. Or some of the trucks were driven by people who were not supposed to be closer to them.
So here you are. You had Jacob Zuma is again mentioning the seriousness of the issue. Not only Jacob Zuma did say that, the head of this IEC, like I say, for those Kenyans, it's the equivalent of IBC, Chebukati, also mentioned something about this. Okay, I will give you a quote by that lady. I think her name is Ellen something. Let me give you a quote. Because it's evident now. You can't deny this, that there was there was some kind of there was rigging, basically, without not to just sugarcoat it. There was a rigging that took place. The lady's name is Helen Zille or whatever her name is. Let me show you what this lady. Okay, can you see the screen here? So this is what she says. This is the newsroom. She admits. Actually, sorry, she's not the. This is a Democratic Alliance federal chairperson. This is not the IEC person. Sorry about that. She says Helen Zille admits there were discrepancies with the elections, and in quote, I don't know how they train the people at the voting stations. So even the DA people, okay, that chama cha wazungu, are saying, hey, there was something that was wrong. Okay, there's a guy called Sile Mavuso, wrote here, quoting some news, whatever he was saying. The DA, Democratic Alliance, the Wazungu party, has issued a statement following the electoral stalemate in KwaZulu-Natal and said it is committed to keeping the MK party and the EFF out of provincial government. This fuels suspicions that the MK party, Mkotosizwe, will be muscled out and stopped from taking over the province. See, the Mkotosizwe is the great threat because ANC is already, like I said, is been infiltrated. ANC stopped the struggle a long time ago. It was riddled with corruption. But Mkotosizwe is kind of that party that it's the ANC of the yesteryears. Okay, it's the ANC that had. It's like the ANC when they had fire. They are really pro-African people. Okay, and that's the party that they are really rigging against. And all this EFF, DA, and ANC are working to, make sure they defeat this Mkotosizwe, which is led by Jacob Zuma, because they know, if these guys kind of come to power, they'll be advocating for the wananchi of that country and not this EFF and all this who are pandering, who are working for the globalist. Okay, so that's what's happening there. But what seems to be amazing is how eerily similar the situation in the South African elections is to what was in 2017 in the electoral process in Kenya. Not only 2017, Kenya 2017, 2007, 2013. It's always been like this. Kenya, we haven't had a legit president. Of course, Ruto was one, but Ruto is a disaster, and you can see how he's basically sitting on Americans' lap, doing their bidding and doing everything right to destroy us. We as Kenyans, okay? So you can see what's happening. Now, there's another clip, old clip by our friend, this guy called Julius Malema, who took that thing. I would say its name because, again, if you mention some things here,
I don't care with this conspiracy theory. I have vaccinated myself. No one forced me. I have vaccinated myself. No one forced me. No one will force me. As a Marxist and a Leninist, I believe in science. And therefore, I don't care with this conspiracy theory that we are going to die. They would have killed us long time ago. They control everything. They control bread you eat every morning. They control meal. They control some. They can poison all of you. If they even control the air, by the way. The air we breathe. They are the ones who are polluting it to show that they are controlling it. They can just put something in this air and it finishes all of us. I vaccinated because I saw the Jewish people vaccinating. The Jews don't play with their lives. Those things of threatening life, they take very serious. So they went to vaccinate. But I was also happy because this vaccine is the first vaccine to be tested on white people. Normally they don't test it on white people. They test it on us. But those trials were run in the white countries as well, in Europe and everywhere else. So this argument that is unscientific, that EFF cannot be part.
So Julius Malema. So Julius Malema says he got iyo ninio, yeah, iyo shindano, and now, and this is not like he didn't give this statement yesterday. This was way when, Pfizer were coming out with these things. If you've been listening to news, especially in Europe and other places, these companies that were producing those things, shots, they've come out to say that, in fact, apologized for being responsible of numerous thousands of deaths due to those. Okay? And here he was advocating as the head of EFF, saying, I got my shindano. You see what I'm saying? Julius Malema has been advocating everything that the global elites, corporatocracy, the colonialist agenda. But he's pretending to be this whole revolutionary. Oh, I'm pro nini. Like I said, once this guy started saying that borderless Africa, anyone who say borderless Africa, same thing Ruto was saying. Ruto's the biggest colonial puppet in Africa today, was advocating for no borders. Anyone who's advocating for no borders is against the sovereignty of nations. They are advocating for a new world agenda, globalist agenda. And here you are, Julius Malema, you see him. Hey, I took my, alafu anajifanya ati sijui wazungu na Wayahudi took it, so it's okay. They tested on them, so we, in a clever way, saying it's okay to take it. I don't care about the conspiracy theories. It's no longer a conspiracy theory anymore. These companies have come out and say that those mashindano are responsible for thousands and millions of deaths. So what do you have to say about that? I told you Julius Malema is a fraud. He's a fraud. But people don't see it. The guy is a globalist. He received money from the Queen of England. What kind of revolutionary receives money from the Queen of England? The most evil person in the world. Well, she's dead now. Charles says, you cannot receive money from the royal family of England and claim that you're revolutionary, pro-African, pan-Africanist. This guy is a faker. I'll play his clip where he comes out and say that the rigging that took place, which even the DA, Democratic Alliance, have come out and say that there were discrepancies. Jacob Zuma said, let's have a recount. Let's count these votes and make sure that the results are accurate. You cannot have people wake up early, line up and vote. Then you go and subvert that democratic process by rigging the elections. And I highlighted how eerily similar the situation in South Africa is as it was in Kenya. That's how they put the colonial puppet, the illegitimate son of Jomo Kenyatta, Uhuru Kenyatta, to rule Kenya for 10 years, doing the bidding of the West. And it's not a coincidence that he is part of the election observers in the South African elections, which is also reported to have overwhelming evidence of rigging. This is not a coincidence. This is done by design to subvert democracy. And I started by showing that, Professor, why the West are vested in these elections in South Africa. South Africa being a heavyweight economically on global South, as it is aligned with the non-alliance group of countries that are anti-West, anti-American hegemony. Okay? Anti the dollarization of the world. They're forming their own BRICS money that is backed by gold, not this Ponzi scheme from the IMF and the Federal Reserve printing money out of thin air, money that is not backed by anything, that is protected by tanks and F-15s. It is not a coincidence. You see what I'm saying? So be careful, be wary of these people who are coming out and say, oh, we are Pan-Africanist. While they tell you to go get those shindano, while they tell you about borderless Africa, we have to have borders in order to have some sense, some level of sovereignty as a nation. We should maintain our sovereign power, sovereign authority as nations. We can cooperate as Africans, but not be borderless. There's a reason why we have doors and we have walls in our houses, so we can control who comes in our house and who goes out of our house. We cannot do away with the walls within our houses and say, invite everybody to come in and come out as they will. Then if we do that, we lose our sovereign power as a family unit, as a home. But that's the global agenda. So we can become like zombies. The whole Nimrod philosophy. Speak one language. That's why God struck that Tower of Babel and made nations out of it. People speak different languages out of that. They want us to go back to that, where people speak one language, so it will be easier to rule them. What makes us unique as a nation is our borders, our culture. Even before the Europeans landed in Africa in 1895, in Kenya, we had tribes. We govern ourselves. Yes, we didn't call it Kenya, but we knew that was Maasai land. We knew that was Luo land. We knew that was Kikuyu land. We knew that was Kambaland, this Luya land, all that. And we lived harmoniously, maintaining our sovereign nature, our culture. But you see what's happening in South Africa. Very similar to what happened in Kenya. The interference by the West. And South Africans are seeing this. I told you, Malema is a fraud. Julius Malema is a fraud. If you still believe this guy is some kind of revolutionary, you are mistaken. You are mistaken. I'm sorry. I feel sorry for you. Here's a guy who was speaking about the investors. You see this language, the language that is being spoken right now with especially these colonial puppets. You'll hear them. The buzzword is investors. We care about investors so we can invest in our country. Investors that kind of... A sovereign nation invests in itself, in its people. A sovereign nation that cares about its people invests in its people. By investing is what? Train our youth, create jobs for our youth, pay our youth. So with the training they receive, they can be engineers that build the infrastructure in our country, run the factories, the industries, different industries that we have, to increase production, whether it's food production. That way we can feed ourselves, and the extra we get, we can trade it with other nations. Okay? Create our own, have our own currency backed by gold. If you're going to borrow, we borrow within from our banks, our own national banks, at a reasonable interest rates. Our own national banks. We don't have to borrow from foreigners that will dictate terms that are impossible, that are geared to take over the major facets of our economy, as they do with the IMF and the Chinese loans and all these loans. You see what I'm saying? But the buzzword is investors, investors, investors. What are they investing on? Listen to this guy. He's one of those guys who they're very quick. They say, "Oh, let's announce this elections results so we can move on. Let's move on. Let's move on." Just like Uhuru Kenyatta after he rigged the election, he was like, "Let's move on. Let's move on. I want to improve the economy. We are working to improve this economy. Let's move on. Let's move on." After stealing the election twice, because they know they're guilty. Oh, let's move on. Let's move on. Let's move on. Let's move on. I want to bring investors so they can invest in this country. Uhuru finished 10 years. There's nothing that the investors did. If anything, we are in debt, indebted to the IMF and these foreign banks. Same thing with this idiot that's right now in the presidency. Uhuru Dani, his successor. Oh, investors. I went to USA to bring some investor. Instead of investing in the people, your own people. Look at Burkina Faso. They're investing in their own people. They told the Chinese, "You want to come here? Come train our people." So that after our people have qualified and they're trained, they will kick you out and go back to your China. We can do it ourselves. Gaddafi did the same thing. He used to send the young folks to go to school in the US and Europe and learn, trade, learn engineering, come build the country. Same thing China did. Go to San Francisco, USC. There's a lot of Chinese students. Why? They're studying engineering and all that stuff. They're studying. And when they finish, they go back and build their country. The Africans, they go to study in US, they go study in Europe, they go study in China, and they become Chinese and build China. They become Americans and help build America. They don't want to invest back home. That's the difference. Listen to this guy. I'll play very quickly. He was one of those who was saying, "Oh, let's this is nonsense." I have about 2 minutes left, but let me play this guy so you can hear what I'm talking about. Be wary of those people who are talking about investors. The colonialist is coming. The colonialist is coming with a new name. He's not the colonizer anymore. He's calling himself an investor. Okay? Here's this guy.
Everything, that we also need to take into hear these voices. Even in this hall, on the extreme rows, many people that are invested in this work who want to really have this work brought to finality. They're invested in it. They're not bystanders. They're not, there are many voters. South Africa is almost, waiting for us. The markets,
what markets?
It's everything, that we also need to take into account.
Yourself,
and so the Constitution, hear these voices, even in.
Anyway. So you see, he's saying we should carry things quickly, so because investors, they can come invest. I told you. These elections, South African election, has exposed Julius Malema. Ramaphosa, we already know he's a sellout. I mean, he was part of the struggle back then, as I said. But once he was compromised by the South African elites, you can see what happened. Okay? So they don't want him. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, it's been 1 hour. I wanted to talk about the Kenyan politics, but it's been an hour. I'll come in later to deal with our Kenyan politics because I know we shall talk about Gachagua and all this nonsense that's going on in Kenya. We already have a Western puppet in the name of Ruto, and he's doing everything to sell every inch of Kenya. We already know that. And the opposition does not exist. They're enjoying the loot that they are being bribed with in somewhere in UK, whether it's Sifuna, Raila Odinga, and all these idiots that follow him. Okay? Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I will come back later and we shall speak or talk or reference and discuss Kenyan politics later. This morning here, I wanted to talk about the South African elections, rigged elections, as it relates to the Kenyan context politics, the similarities and the overall global elites interfering with African nations' sovereignty and democracy by, messing up the electoral process to put their puppets, okay? Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, and comrades, I appreciate you guys watching. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, go to YouTube. My name is Kenyan Revolutionary, and you can follow me on X or Twitter, formerly known as Twitter, KR Revolutionary, and subscribe to my channel. Like, share, comment. As I say, the first order of business is usually what? Like the video if you've already subscribed, and if you haven't subscribed, you're watching me on the timeline for the first time, subscribe, okay? My name is Kenyan Revolutionary. I'll see you guys later. Peace and blessings.